So Donald Trump seems to be saying some outrageous things. I don't think any of you missed it, right? Yeah, the Mexicans coming in are criminals and rapists, and Megyn Kelly's bleeding out of her thing, and then, you know, it goes on, and I prefer people who weren't captured by the Vietnamese. I mean, there's no end to it, right? So does he know that he's being divisive, that he's pitting, for example, Latino immigrants against the rest of the country? When he questions President Obama's citizenship, is there a racial angle to that, especially when he says, I don't believe he went to Columbia. In other words, I don't think he could be smart enough to go to Columbia. He wanted to see his long-form transcript. Is that divisive? Well, it seems obvious to us, but don't worry, you don't have to trust us anymore. You can just ask Donald Trump himself, and that's what they did on ABC's This Week, and listen to what he had to say.
I was against 16 other candidates, and, you know, I'm being divisive right now because I want to win. I know how to win. That's what I have to do.
The amazing thing about Trump is that he doesn't know any better to not say that. So he doesn't sound like a normal politician, because a normal politician would be guarded with things that are obviously a problem, right? So he's like, no, I'm the demagogue. I'm the one being divisive. Later, I'll say, oh, it's Hillary Clinton. You can't elect her. She's so divisive. But he just told you he's doing it on purpose for politics so he can win. Amazing. A demagogue who is accidentally honest. So now, that's kind of a fun thing when this guy doesn't know any better and he blurts out his political strategy, which is to divide the country. I mean, these are weird times when that's slightly fun. It stops being fun when it gets real. And when does it get real? Well, when you have violence, for example. So they're doing a Trump rally in Miami. Some protesters go in, but really all they're doing was they had a sign. This Ariel Rojas had a sign that said equality. And apparently a sign by Latinos saying equality was deeply offensive to the Trump supporters. So now I'm about to show you a video where it gets real. One of the Trump supporters grabs the guy, assaults him, drags him out. At the end, the cops seem to help him along, and then listen to the chant in the background as they're assaulting this lone Latino man who had the temerity put up a sign that said equality. Watch. This is the beginning of fascism. When you have a guy who's assaulted, who is exercising his First Amendment rights, and as inoffensively as you could possibly imagine, and he gets assaulted like that, and with a crowd chanting in the background, USA, USA. Oh man, how does that not give a chill down your spine? Like, we're now chanting as we assault people from a different background. I mean, I assume Rojas is an American citizen just like any of us. It doesn't matter. He's Latino. He's Latino, and he had a sign for equality. And what does the Trump campaign say? Well, the guy in the pink shirt, he's not an official part of the campaign. He was merely an attendee. Yet another wink and a nod. I didn't say don't do it. So if you see a Latino guy among us, kick his ass and throw him out. And the crowd will chant along with you. Now, look, in the past, if you said fascism, you know, the mainstream media would jump all over you and, how dare you be respectful of the right wing? You're not allowed to say that. Oh, right? Well, what the hell was that? What have we become? That you can start pounding on protesters, pounding on people that are different than you. And this is not the first time. You had his supporters, two drunk guys up in Boston, kick the living hell out of a poor homeless guy. They don't know whether he's a citizen or not, but he was Latino. They're good enough, good enough. Let's kick the crap out of him, right? They asked Trump about it. He says, some of my supporters are very passionate. Well, when you encourage that kind of violence against another, I've seen that movie before. And that movie is called Fascism. And it doesn't end well. So a lot of people entertained by Donald Trump, ha-ha, reality contestant, hey, you know what? Some of the other Republicans are worse when it comes to their ideology or their policy positions. I hear you. But this is not fun. This is not entertaining. It's real. God help us if this guy's president, and then he starts doing this to anybody who dares protest him. Physical violence, intimidation. Let us avoid these beginnings so we can avoid those ends. That is a great quote by Sandra Day O'Connor. She was a Republican on the Supreme Court appointed by Ronald Reagan, and she warned about the totalitarian state rising here in their attack against the judiciary. Now they've taken it to a whole new level where they're being divisive on purpose and physically so. If we don't put an end to this, man, it's going to put an end to us. We got to get up and fight back. I don't mean in the stupid right-wing fascist way that they do, but I mean politically. Get up. Get up. We're not going to let them drag us out of places. And we don't start that fight when it's too late. We start it right now. You want to push us around? No. That's not how we're going to play this game, okay? So, first of all, and I'm saying everything we do is by the law because we stand for the rule of law. We stand for the American way. They're the ones who are knuckle draggers, mouth breathers that are trying to do violence. That guy in the pink shirt, the authorities of Miami should immediately find him and arrest him, and he should get a very significant jail sentence. That was the most clear assault I have ever seen. Can anyone argue that was not assault? He's not a cop. He's not anybody. He just grabbed the guy and threw him to the ground while everybody else cheered on. No. We have to have rule of law in this country. If we don't have rule of law, this thing spirals out of control. That man should be arrested immediately. Miami police, where the hell are you? Or are you just going to let people get assaulted in Miami without doing anything about it? Or are there two different rules here? One set of rules for white Republicans and another set for Latinos. Is that really going to stand in Miami? If you don't arrest that guy, apparently you think it's okay to beat down Latinos in Miami. And if you think that, everyone in the Miami Police Department should be fired.